Hello Year 3. Yesterday we were learning all about non-unit fractions. Non-unit fractions are fractions where the numerator is greater than 1. So we could have 2/4, 3/4 or even 4/4, which we know is the same as the whole, as 1. We learned yesterday that when we were comparing non-unit fractions, the greater the numerator, the greater the fraction. Let's have a look at why that's true. I'm going to compare 2/4 and 3/4. If I'm looking at quarters, how many equal parts will my whole be divided into? 4, well done, because my denominator is 4, so it's divided into 4 equal parts. If I look at 2/4, I need 2 of those equal parts. So let's put those in. 1, 2. I've got 2/4. If I want 3/4, I'm going to need to add more because 3 is greater than 2. So I need a 3/4, a third piece. So I can see that just like 3 is greater than 2, 3/4 is greater than 2/4. So when the denominators are the same, I just need to look at how many of those parts I'm selecting. This is different to when we compared unit fractions, fractions with a numerator of 1. When we were looking at those fractions, we needed to look at the denominator because the greater the denominator, the more pieces I've had to split my whole into and the smaller each of those pieces are going to be. So here, I've only split my whole into 4 pieces, whereas here, I've had to split it into 6 pieces. So these pieces are going to be smaller. So 1/6 is less than 1/4. You've done a brilliant job comparing fractions. We're going to mark our work from yesterday and then we will be revising adding fractions and subtracting fractions. For the past 2 days, we have been comparing unit and non-unit fractions. We have learnt that when the fraction is a unit fraction, the greater the denominator, the smaller the fraction. And when the fraction has the same denominator, the greater the numerator, the greater the fraction. Here are your workbook pages from yesterday. Pause the video to correct your answers and check them. Remember, if there's anything you don't understand or you are confused by, please send Miss Downing and Miss Lopez a message. Today we are going to be adding fractions. Remember, we've already learnt the 2 parts of a fraction, numerator and denominator. It's really important that we remember these words and we know what they mean because it can help us to explain and understand our learning. Last time you had your lesson with Miss Downing, we were looking at adding fractions. So we already know that when we add, we put our parts together to make a whole. So here our number sentence would be 1/3 plus 2/3 is 3/3 or 1. Today our friends Charles and Ruby from Maths No Problem are here. They have got a box of sweets. What do you notice about the box of sweets? How many parts are the sweets in the box divided into? Can you pause the video and count? I can see that the sweets are divided into 6 equal parts. Charles says that he is going to take 1/6 of the sweets in the box. Ruby says she is going to take 3/6 of the sweets in the box. We need to work out what fraction of the sweets did Charles and Ruby take all together. Let's start by looking at what fraction each child took. What fraction of the sweets did Charles take? What fraction of the sweets did Ruby take? Charles took 1/6 of the sweets. That means he took 1 part. Ruby took 3/6 of the sweets. That means she took 3 parts. What is the problem asking us to find? What calculation do we need to do to find the fraction of sweets they took all together? Pause the video, see if you can write down the calculation, write down the number sentence that would tell us how many sweets they took all together. The number sentence we need is 1/6 plus 3/6, which would make 4/6. This is because Charles took 1/6. He took 1 of the parts. Ruby took 3/6, so we need to add those 3 parts that Ruby took. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6. Altogether, 4 of the parts were taken. Charles and Ruby took 4/6 of the sweets. Let's see if we can prove our answer by using a bar model. This bar represents the total number of sweets. How many parts are the sweets split into? Correct, they're split into 6 equal parts. Charles took 1/6, 1 of those 6 parts. Ruby took 3/6, 1, 2, 3 of those equal parts. Altogether, 4 of the parts were taken. Altogether, 4/6 of the sweets were taken. Now that we've added together the fractions, our friend from Maths No Problem is wondering whether the fractions are in their simplest form. Are there any equivalent fractions for 4/6? Think back to what you learnt with Miss Lopez last week. Our friend thinks that 4/6 is the same as 2/3. Do you agree? Let's have a look. This bar shows 4/6. It shows the fraction of sweets that Charles and Ruby took. The bar underneath shows 2/3. There are 3 parts, 2 of them are shaded. Are the fractions the same? Correct. So the simplest form for 4/6 would be 2/3. You've done a great job so far, Year 3. Now it's time for you to have a practice yourself. I would like you to add 2/3 and 1/3. Pause the video and add the fractions. Let's check your answer. On the screen, I have a bar that has been divided into 3 equal parts because the denominator is 3. I'm going to start with 2 of those equal parts, 2/3. And then I'm going to add 1 more, 2/3 plus 1/3. What's the answer? Correct, it's 3/3. Or some of you who remembered our learning from 2 weeks ago will also know that this is the same as 1 because the whole of the rectangle is complete. Here's one more challenge for you to have a go at. Can you add 1/7 and 5/7. When you've done that, could you think about whether or not your answer is the simplest form of the fraction? Pause the video and have a go. If you've remembered our learning from before, you will know that when the denominator is the same, we just need to add the numerator. So 1/7 and 5/7 will be 6/7. I also asked you to think about whether or not this is the simplest form of the fraction. Let's think back to what Miss Lopez taught us last week and use our fraction wall. This is 6/7. Can you see an equivalent fraction on the fraction wall? No. So 6/7 is the simplest form of the fraction. Sometimes our answer is already the simplest form and we don't need to do anything. Here is your independent practice for today. I would like you to do page 111. You will notice that we have skipped out worksheet 17. That's okay. We're not going to do that one as part of our home learning. So instead, go straight to worksheet 18, page 111. I'm going to point out these two boxes here because the question's asking you to add the fractions and then write the fraction in its simplest form. I'm going to leave this fraction wall up because it might help you to work out the simplest form of the fraction.